Barb's my great neighbor that I'm not going to put in the freezer. Now, for those of you that don't know the story, I had a terrible neighbor. And in order to get rid of some of the animosity he had towards me, I took his name, his picture, and put it in a little bag, filled it with sugar, and threw it in my freezer. Sweeten him up and chill him out. I don't do that. She's a lovely lady. And a terrific neighbor. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about spiritual growth. By the way, this is the talk that was on the computer that I couldn't get to. You must be part of the change that you want to see in the world, was the statement that Gandhi gave. We're in very tumultuous times right now. And you know, we can say that year after year after year, because we always are. Mother Earth is constantly changing. But you have to change. You have to get rid of your old belief systems. You have to be in alignment with what's going on around you now in order to move forward. How many of you have felt all, you know, there was 6 earthquakes this week, and this morning Marie walked in and said there was a tsunami. How many have been feeling really emotionally basket case this week? You know, I sat yesterday in the living room and my husband said, "Can I do anything for you?" And I said no, and I waited for him to leave, and I sat down and cried for 5 minutes. And then I went, "Oh, okay, I'm feeling a bit better," but I didn't know about the tsunami. I'm very in tune with all the earthquakes. I can tell you, this week I had it down to the minute with 3 of them. And then checked it later on, and yeah, that was exactly what was happening. So I've started paying more attention to what's happening within my physical body, so that I'm aware. So anyone interested in the website, if you email me, I'll forward it to you, and then you can start checking in for yourself. Okay? But I knew something major was up because of the emotional state I was in as well. We can look at evolution as the evolution of the mind. We've become more sophisticated, more knowledgeable, and much more complex. We usually refer to who we are in psychological terms, ideas and thoughts. Attitudes, beliefs, memories, this is the realm of personal identity. What we are is that special, non-material magic called spirit. We can find spirit in human beings, trees, animals, flower. Everything around us has a spirit to it. And that spirit also has a vibration that is absolutely unique to it. There are similarities, but each vibration is individual. Isaiah 45:7 says, "I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things." Evil is considered the opposite of peace. Evil is simply the ego. To more deeply connect with peace, we need to be less ego. Ego is our false sense of self, and everything that is false ends up creating trouble. How many have heard the term, ego is easing God out? Remember, God is within all of us. We were made in His likeness. So we all have this ability. It's what are we going to do with it? How are we going to move forward? You have to let go of old patterns that are causing issues for you. Most religions promise that if you do good deeds, you will be rewarded accordingly. But when so-called good people continue to go through tribulations, despite being faithful followers, they become conflicted, disillusioned, and sometimes desert their faith. Confessions is a perfect example. How many people do you know go to confession? You know, they've done this all week long, and they go to confession and they ask, I want assistance with this, and I want to ask for, let me do 5 Hail Marys, and then next week I can go back and do it again and just carry on. It doesn't work that way. Natural laws kick in, and we find that everything we do has repercussions. We are every thought we put out. What you do today is what's going to come into your life tomorrow or the next day. It just depends on where you are in the scheme of learning things. The more in tune and aware you are, the quicker it repercussions on you, okay? An example I love to give when I'm talking to people about hypnosis is, if you cut someone off at this corner, The more spiritual you are, within 2 to 3 blocks, it comes back and someone cuts you off. If you're not very in tune, it may take 10 blocks before they cut you off, because the repercussions are always there. Everything we do has repercussions to it, and we all need to be very, very consciously aware of these things. Spirituality, on the other hand, does not make such promises. All it says is that if you practice, you will enjoy complete peace. Big difference, isn't it? Okay? And it's because when you go within, you connect to Source. When you connect to Source, peace and tranquility comes into your life. You may still go through hard times, but you will overcome adversity by connecting deeply with peace. We know that everything here on the physical level is about experiencing. So we must take time to go within to allow understanding, knowledge, and awareness to move us through whatever we are facing. It is the internal connection to higher self that allows you to focus and move through to bring peace back into your life. That is why we encourage you to meditate with us, with another organization, on your own. We don't care how you do it. We care that you do it, okay? And everyone's form of meditation can be different. Sometimes just sitting out in nature is enough. Other times it's listening to soft music. Some people just sitting there quietly and connecting to the silence is enough. You know, it's how do you find the meditative state within? For many years I've been working within the foundation in my practice to help clients transform their lives through working with their values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and habits. I help these individuals learn how to connect with their deep sense of inner peace. And that's one of the things I'm so proud of this foundation for. We now have 7 different development classes. And it's what level are you at? Where do you need the help? How can we help you move forward? For some people, this spiritual connection clicked fast. For others, more work has to be done to connect to that inner peace. Our thinking patterns cause the biggest block to inner peace. This mental pattern is one of ego's major preoccupations. I believe that most people are not aware of how much they compare everything and everybody on all levels. This is an ongoing 24-hour-a-day problem that can cause enormous amounts of stress to us individually. But you know, what we don't realize is that not only does it cause the stress in our life, but think about the repercussions it causes within our family, within the organizations we work, within our communities, you know? Look at the politicians, how they malign one another. If they simply talked about the good things going on and where they wanted to go and encouraged people, we'd be in a much better state of awareness. When we pay attention to how we consciously and unconsciously compare each other, we begin to see that we are often preoccupied with wrong thinking. She's prettier. She's taller. He's smarter. They have a bigger house. Painful comparisons go on and on. This sets up patterns of endless self-criticism, being down on oneself, which then can cause more conditions later on in life. Remember, every thought has a repercussion to it. Are you positive? Are you negative? A lot of the statements that we've learned over the years, is your cup half full or is it half empty? It's your perspective on how you deal with life that is so important. This patterning can be changed. We don't just compare ourselves to others. We also compare our current conditions to conditions of the past. If we have more, we feel good. But if the opposite happens, we tend to feel really bad. When something is taken from us, a possession, our health, a loved one, we get depressed because we compare to what we had to what we have now. The past, in this way, hinders your spiritual growth. Dwelling on the past hinders recovery. Acknowledging the past hurt, loss, etc. is normal. Dwelling on it causes an emotional issue that keeps you running in circles emotionally. How many people do we know get stuck? Well, I can't get past this. Well, you can't get past it if you don't change your thinking patterns and start looking at things. You have to acknowledge that you love someone and you lost them, but it's time to move on. What did you do wrong with that relationship? What did you do wrong that you feel you should change in order to move into the next relationship? Look at it as a learning experience. This is why we constantly talk about learning experiences and learning here on the earth plane. It's not about just living your life day to day. It's about experiencing and growing spiritually from it. When we compare the present to the future, it's called worrying. When you live in the past or in the future, you're living in your mind. You're not dealing in the here and the now and all the things that have to be done. You can choose to stay focused on the present, and then you can do the best with what you have. How are you feeling at the moment? Are you feeling good? Wonderful. Remember that. Don't get caught up in the past and stop worrying about the future. You need to look at things you need to do, okay, and acknowledge that there's some changes you need to make, then do it. That's the difference between spiritually minded people and those that don't move forward. You can't make the past better. You can only affect the present. That in turn will affect the future. You can't totally let go of the past. It is your personal history. You are the result of every experience you've had in the past. And if you learn from it, you grow spiritually and it makes you a better person. Doesn't that make sense? It does to me. You can resolve repressed feelings to move forward into the present. You can acknowledge that the last love I had was a total abuser. So I'm going to learn from this and choose not to have anyone like that in my life. Now, you will repeat patterns, but you can acknowledge that this is what you had from the past and how to move forward from it. And learn from it. And make sure that the next partner is much more respectful. You know, when my kids were growing up, and I say this to the young kids that I deal with when I'm marrying them as well, and I ask 90% of the young couples that I'm marrying, are you sure this is what you want? It sounds kind of silly for a minister, right? It's not. I want to make sure they realize this is a lifelong commitment. If they want to be together, they need to make sure that that's really the partner they want to be with. And why do I do that? Because the evening before I married the first gentleman, I'm using that term loosely, I realized it was a mistake and I didn't know how to get out of it because I had 350 people coming and I had 12 in my wedding party and they were coming from all over Ontario. How did I cancel that? 4.5 years later, I learned the lesson. And I haven't repeated it. But I learned from it, and that's what's important. Okay? I learned all the things I don't want in a partner. Judgment is nothing but a comparison process. When we judge, we are comparing other people, their behaviors, their beliefs to ours, how we believe they should be. When we judge, we're saying, I know better than you, or I'm better than you. When you stop judging, you allow yourself to see the good in other people, and you respect all people with their weaknesses and their strengths. Fundamentally, people want to connect with each other, to be accepted as they are, and to feel good about themselves. If you acknowledge that someone has an issue, but you love them anyway, you're helping them to move forward. Please remember that. Beating them up with words is not going to help them. Acknowledging that they have an issue and ask them how they plan to resolve it is a much better solution. If you give people such a safe feeling of connection and warmth, you have done something really, really important. To achieve that, judgment must be completely suspended or set aside. Eastern philosophies emphasize the importance of ultimately attaining the ultimate state of enlightenment. The ego can never be enlightened. To be enlightened, you have to be who you are. Lao Tzu said, "He who knows others is wise, but he who knows himself is enlightened." Enlightenment represents the light of awareness called the light of consciousness. This special light illustrates awakening from the illusion of perceived reality into real reality, the real reality of who you are. You know the truth about you. Only you know. People may think they know you, but only you truly know yourself. You know all the good you've done, all the bad you've done, all the secrets you've hidden. You know the truth about you and who you really are. As the story goes, after Buddha experienced a state of enlightenment, people who had noticed his transformation asked him if he was God. He said no. "So what are you?" asked all these confused people. Buddha said, "I am awake." Since enlightenment emanates from the spirit, which is the direct extension of ultimate intelligence, it is also a state of very deep knowing. No question remains, just one answer exists, which involves you and your relationship to everyone and everything. A deep sense of oneness that cannot be explained using the rational mind or scientific principles. One of the most powerful concepts, well established in all religions, is forgiveness. Simply put, to practice forgiveness, you need to shut your mind and open your heart. Forgiveness is the practice that can change your life. When you forgive, you also let go of resentment, and a feeling of joy is experienced. How many have had resentment? Had it yesterday. You know, neighbor on the north side, major issues with the fence, had to take him to court to make him pay his fair share. The fence is now starting to have issues because his trees are leaning up against the fence and pushing it. So my husband thought, well, we won't say anything, we'll just take care of it ourselves because we really don't want to end back up in court. And he went over and he cut the limb off that had pushed one section of the fence out, cut the limb off, braced it so we wouldn't have to go on his property. We don't want to cause an issue. Put wood in. Yesterday discovered he had removed everything. Resentment? Yesterday I was wound up like a top, and then I went, no. Let go of this, Alva. Just do what has to be done. Call the bylaw people in and make them remove all the branches that are causing the fence to turn over. Easy solution. We'll carry on. You have to let go of the resentment. The annoyance was there, and I went, you know, you're bigger than this. You've had that problem. You worked through it. We have a terrific neighbor on the other side now that caused all the issues. Now we have to deal with the other side. So it's all about, how do you handle it? You don't get caught up in the past as I did yesterday. You deal in the here and now. Okay, I need to do this because the fence is being ruined. How am I going to deal with it? I'm going to call the authorities because I can't talk to the man and deal with it appropriately. That's what you do. Don't get caught up in the past. Deal with the here and now. What's the appropriate thing to do in order to fix this? Don't get caught up. Forgiveness benefits everybody. However, I admit it's not always an easy thing to do. Gandhi said, forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. This also works the other way around. We become stronger when we forgive. Forgiveness cuts your losses short. It enables you to go on and move on with anything you need to do. Religion externalizes the problem by asking God to forgive us Forgiveness is an internal affair. You ultimately have to forgive yourself. It is the process of deeper learning that results in letting go, with the ultimate result of connecting to peace. Realize you don't need prayer, a priest, or anyone else's approval to do it, unless you prefer it that way. It is a choice. If you feel better by sharing with someone or asking someone to help you forgive, there's nothing wrong with that. But recognize it has to come from within. They can forgive you out there, but the forgiveness starts in here. What you really need to do is reflect on the experience, learn from it, and then let it go. Forgiveness is a spiritual act, not a superficial one. If you hold on to stuff that's already obsolete and contributes nothing to your well-being, if you've already regretted, dealt with, prayed, and then practiced forgiveness, forgiveness helps resolve the resentment that we may be harboring towards others and ourselves. Such resentment prevents us from connecting with our inner source of inner peace. The fact is, the forgiveness has to come from within. In the New Testament, Mark 11:26, it states, "But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father, which is in heaven, forgive your trespasses." Remember, I said, we were made in the likeness of God. We are the God within. So if we can't forgive ourselves, how can we possibly forgive others? For believers, faith is the connection with God. Through this connection, anything can be healed and changed. Faith precedes understanding. And I'll finish with the line from Gandhi. You must be part of the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you for allowing me to